Lately, you feel like something is different inside of you. It seems like the world around you doesn't make as much sense anymore. Certain conversations sound empty. Certain people seem to be asleep, while you're seeing something they don't. See, your thoughts are changing. Your body is reacting in strange ways. And sometimes, you feel completely disconnected from reality. But here's the truth, you're not going crazy. What's happening to you has a name, and few people realize this in time. You are awakening. Your body, your mind, and your energy are changing because you're waking up from the state of slumber in which most people live. But the problem is that no one taught you what happens when this begins. And when no one teaches you, you start to doubt yourself. You think it's just stress. Maybe it's anxiety. Or worse, that something is wrong with you. But what if I told you that this emptiness, this feeling of not belonging, this strange perception that everything around you seems different, all of this is a symptom of your spiritual awakening? The world around you hasn't changed. What's changing is you, and that's exactly why you feel this disconnection. You are seeing reality beyond the illusion, and at first, this can be scary. Have you ever felt that something inside of you is awakening, but you can't explain what it is? Spiritual awakening is not an abstract concept. It affects your mind, your body, and your emotions in an intense way. And do you know why? Because when your frequency rises, you start to vibrate at a different level than most people around you. And what happens when you change frequency? Your nervous system reacts. Your body feels it first. Your thoughts come into conflict with your old beliefs. Your energy begins to reject what once seemed normal. Suddenly, things that made sense no longer do. You look at certain situations and think, how did I never notice this before? People who were once part of your life begin to seem distant, like you no longer speak the same language. And this feeling can be uncomfortable. It can even be scary. But the truth is, this isn't a problem, it's a sign. This process makes you go through strange and challenging symptoms, which are often confused with stress, anxiety, or even health problems. But in reality, this is a clear symptom that your perception of reality is changing. If lately you've been feeling different from the world, more sensitive, more questioning, and even disconnected from certain people, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means you're beginning to see life in a way that few people perceive. And now, I'm going to show you the physical, emotional, and mental signs of this process. You look at the clock and feel that the hours passed in the blink of an eye. But at other times, it seems like the days never end. Time, which has always been predictable, now seems strange, inconsistent. Have you ever felt this? Like an entire day has vanished. But when you look back, you can't remember exactly what you spent that time doing, or the opposite. You lived through an intense experience full of emotions and thoughts, but when you check, only a few minutes have passed. This is no coincidence. Your perception of time is changing because your consciousness is changing. Time, as you've always known it, is a construct of the mind. The way you perceive it is directly tied to your vibration. And when your vibration changes, your perception of reality changes as well. The people around you are still stuck in the linear notion of time, one day after the other, the predictable routine, the clock as the absolute master. But you've started to break free from this prison. Your awakening is making you perceive time as it really is, relative, elastic, and much more connected to your consciousness than to the hands of a clock. And this phenomenon doesn't only happen inside you. Look around. Have you noticed how the years are passing more and more quickly, as if reality is speeding up? This is happening because the Earth's energy frequency is rising. The entire world is vibrating at a higher frequency, and those who are awakening feel this in an amplified way. What once seemed distant now happens in an instant. Plans that used to take years to materialize now manifest quickly. But at the same time, for those still trapped in the illusion of time, there's a sense of suffocation, that there's never enough time, that life is passing too quickly without them being able to keep up. And you know what's even crazier? This effect also happens in your own internal processes. Your thoughts are moving faster. Ideas come and go like lightning. You notice patterns, understand situations, and anticipate events instantly. But at the same time, there are moments when everything seems to freeze, like you're outside of time, as if the world is on pause while your consciousness expands to something greater. That's why sometimes you feel like you're living in two worlds at once. The physical world where the clock ticks away, and the energetic world where time molds itself to your perception. But there's one more detail. When this shift happens, your body also reacts. You might feel a sense of disorientation, as if you're out of sync with the reality around you. You might find yourself staring into space, completely absorbed, without even noticing time passing. You might feel a sudden fatigue, as if your mind is trying to keep up with a flow of information that's coming too quickly. And the most common of all, the difficulty in maintaining a traditional routine. The old time structures no longer work for you. 8-hour workdays, fixed schedules, the repetition of the same routine. None of this feels natural now. You feel like you need more freedom, more flow, more connection with your own rhythm. And this is one of the greatest difficulties for those who are awakening. Because as your perception expands, the world keeps trying to force you to follow outdated rules, schedules, deadlines, obligations that no longer make sense. The feeling of being trapped grows, but not because something is wrong with you, but because you no longer belong to this limited way of living. This is one of the clearest signs that you're leaving the state of slumber. You're no longer just existing within time, you're beginning to understand it. And when that happens, life is never the same again. Before you could engage in any type of conversation, but now some talks just drain you. The noise seems louder, the words seem empty. You hear someone complaining about traffic, discussing gossip or debating insignificant things, and something inside of you asks, why does this matter? And that's the point. It doesn't matter. Your spiritual awakening is changing the way you perceive the world, and this includes what comes out of people's mouths. You feel an increasing need for real conversations, exchanges that have depth. Talking just for the sake of talking no longer makes sense. But here comes the problem. Most people aren't going through the same process. They continue living on autopilot, stuck in empty routines and distractions that only serve to fill time. And when you try to bring something deeper, you often realize they don't understand. Worse, they might look at you like you're strange. This creates frustration, a sense of isolation. You want to connect, you want to share what you're discovering, but people don't seem ready for that. And this is where many people in the awakening process experience a shock. Because before, these same dialogues didn't bother you. You were part of it too. You used to care about trivial matters. You discussed things that now seem insignificant. But something has changed, and now there's no going back. The superficiality of interactions has become visible. You can tell when someone is speaking just out of habit, without real interest. You feel the energy of the words, and that makes all the difference. It's like before, you were content swimming on the surface, but now you need depth to breathe. But not everyone is willing to dive. This creates an internal conflict, because while you feel this need for more meaningful connections, you're still surrounded by a world that feeds on superficiality. Social media, social circles, even family. Everything seems to revolve around distractions. And here comes the dilemma: to distance yourself or to keep participating. Many people begin to feel lonely in this process. They look around and ask themselves, who can I really talk to? The problem isn't just the lack of depth, it's the feeling that no one speaks your language anymore. And this can hurt. You realize that the people you once spent time with no longer understand you. They're still stuck in the same concerns, discussing the same problems, living in the same cycle, while you feel like you're moving to a different place. But this distancing, as painful as it may seem, is natural, because awakening isn't just about understanding more, it's about vibrating differently. And when you start vibrating differently, certain things just don't fit anymore. It doesn't mean you're wrong or that others are wrong. It means you're no longer on the same point of the journey. But there's a positive side to all of this. Over time, you begin to attract people who speak the same language, people who are also awakening, people who also feel this need for something deeper, people who understand what you're feeling without you needing to explain. And little by little, these connections begin to fill the space left by those who no longer make sense. What once seemed like loneliness now seems like freedom, because you realize that you no longer need to force yourself to be in places where your energy doesn't belong. And this is the real change. When you stop trying to fit in, when you accept that certain conversations, certain relationships, and certain environments no longer fit your frequency, something incredible happens. You align with people and situations that truly make sense. You're in the middle of your day doing something ordinary, and suddenly a huge joy fills your chest. No explanation, no reason, a sense of fullness. as if you're connected to something much greater than yourself. But then a few hours later, the opposite happens. An emptiness arises out of nowhere, a deep, intense sadness, as if you're losing something, but without understanding exactly what. These emotional fluctuations are one of the most striking symptoms of spiritual awakening. And if you're feeling this, know that it's not madness, it's not emotional imbalance, it's your energy system readjusting. When you begin to awaken, your vibration changes. Your body, your mind, and your emotions enter a process of purification. This means that old energies, repressed traumas, and blockages you didn't even know you had begin to emerge. And they emerge like this, as intense emotions that seem to come out of nowhere. The sudden euphoria happens because, at certain moments, you align with your true essence. You touch a higher level of consciousness. Your spirit recognizes the expansion happening within you, and this connection brings a deep happiness that doesn't depend on anything external. But then, just as this joy arises, it disappears, and sadness comes with force. This sadness doesn't mean something is wrong. It's the release of everything that was trapped inside of you, old memories, limiting beliefs, unresolved pains. Your awakening brings all of this to the surface because you can't carry these burdens to where you're going. And the most frustrating part, often you can't even identify the origin of this feeling. You just feel it. And this can be exhausting because, while most people around you continue living on autopilot, you're going through an internal storm that no one else seems to notice. But this storm has a purpose. It's clearing the way for your energy to vibrate at a higher level. It's a recalibration process, and the more you resist these emotions, the more intense they become. You might try to distract yourself, pretend you're not feeling anything, occupy your mind with anything. But this energy doesn't disappear. It just stays there, waiting for the right moment to resurface again. And that's why these emotional fluctuations can seem unpredictable, because awakening doesn't follow a straight line. One day you feel immense clarity. Everything makes sense, you feel connected, light, inspired. The next, everything feels like chaos. You doubt yourself, question your choices, feel an anguish. That seems endless, and the most confusing part, nothing has changed in your external world. Life remains the same. The people around you remain the same. But inside of you there's an earthquake happening, and no one taught you how to deal with this. Society teaches that emotional changes need a concrete reason. That unexplained sadness is all in your head. But you know that's not true, because this sadness feels different, it feels ancient, like it comes from way before the present moment. And it does. Many of these emotions aren't just yours. They are part of what you've absorbed throughout your life. Childhood beliefs, family patterns, pains from past lives, energies from your environment. All of this starts to dissolve in your awakening. And the best way to go through this is to feel. Let those emotions exist. Allow them to come and go without judgment, because that's exactly what they want, to be recognized and released. And each time you go through one of these cycles, something inside of you changes. You become lighter, your energy adjusts, and little by little, these waves begin to balance out. But until then, the process may seem intense. So if you feel that inexplicable euphoria followed by moments of deep sadness, understand that this is part of your transformation. You're in the middle of a conversation or doing something routine when suddenly your mind seems to shut off. For a few seconds, you feel as if you're no longer there, like the world around you has stopped and you're in a suspended space with no reference, no time, no place. And then in the blink of an eye, you return. But for a moment, everything felt distant. Has this happened to you? This sensation is not just fatigue or distraction. It's a symptom of your consciousness awakening. Your brain and your energy are changing. The way you perceive reality is changing. For most of your life, you lived within the same frequency as everyone else. A state of consciousness focused only on the physical plane, on daily obligations, on material concerns. But now, something inside of you is awakening, and this awakening begins to expand your perception beyond the physical world. What happens in these moments of disconnection is that your mind is accessing something greater. It's as if for a few seconds your consciousness steps out of common reality and touches a higher level of perception, and you feel it in your body. Sometimes it feels like a light stupor, as if your brain has been paused. Other times it comes as a strange sensation, a sort of displacement, a brief moment of disorientation. And the more you awaken, the more frequent these moments become. The issue is that when you return from this state, reality seems different. You look around and feel that things are not as solid as they seemed before, as if there's something beyond what the eyes can see, as if reality is just a thin layer over something much greater. And this feeling doesn't come out of nowhere, because what you're experiencing is the dissolution of the illusion. Most people live trapped in a single level of perception. They see the world only through matter, through what is tangible, through what has been taught as real. But you've begun to feel that there's something beyond, and these moments of disconnection are glimpses of that truth. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. You might feel like you're losing focus or even question if something is wrong with your mind. But there is nothing wrong. What's happening is that your consciousness is expanding beyond the limited reality you've always lived in. This can happen at any moment, while driving, watching something, or listening to someone speak. And the most interesting part is that it usually happens when your mind is relaxed but receptive. It's as if your energy field takes advantage of these moments to take you further, to open small gaps in your perception and allow you to feel what lies behind the physical reality. And the more you allow this to happen, the more you begin to perceive the hidden patterns of existence. You feel that there is something beyond the words people say. You perceive energies in environments. You sense feelings and intentions without anyone needing to say anything. The line between the visible and the invisible becomes thinner. And this perception doesn't just happen with your mind. Your body also feels this change. Some people report shivers, as if an energy field is passing through them during these moments. Others feel a sudden lightness, as if their body became lighter, almost floating. And there are also those moments when vision seems to change. The space around you gains a new depth, the colors seem more vibrant, the sounds become sharper. You notice details that you had previously overlooked. This happens because when your consciousness touches this new frequency, your brain processes reality differently. If before you saw the world in a rigid, concrete way, now it begins to seem more fluid. And the truth is, this is the real nature of existence. Matter is not fixed. Everything is energy, vibration, movement, and you are beginning to perceive this. At first, it may seem strange. You might feel a slight discomfort, as if you're transitioning between two realities. But over time, you learn to navigate this new perception without fear. And then something incredible happens. These moments of disconnection stop being random lapses and begin to become conscious states. You learn to access this level of perception whenever you want. You bring this expanded awareness into your daily life. Your intuition becomes sharper, your decisions clearer, your connection with life stronger. What once seemed like just a passing distraction reveals itself as a portal to a higher level of perception. Something inside you has changed. What once made sense now seems lifeless. What used to motivate you no longer sparks interest. And the worst part, you can't explain exactly what happened, but you feel that you need to leave. Leave the work that no longer challenges you, the environments that drain your energy, relationships that seem to exist only out of habit. Your soul is calling for change, and this impulse doesn't come from a fleeting whim. It is the call of your awakening. Most people live their entire lives within the same patterns. They follow the social script, never questioning whether it really makes sense to them. But you've begun to see beyond, and once this happens, there's no turning back. You look at your routine and feel a weight. You try to fit in. You try to continue as before, but something inside you resists. It's as if your soul is pushing you onto a different path. But here's the challenge. You feel this need for change, but you don't exactly know where to go. This generates anxiety, a feeling of being lost. You feel that you need to leave your current reality, but you still can't clearly see the next step. And this emptiness can be frightening because, contrary to what we've been taught, not every transition comes with a ready map. Awakening doesn't give you all the answers at once. It only shows you that what you've lived until now no longer serves you, and this is why many resist. They try to ignore this call, force themselves to continue as before, convince themselves it's just a phase, but deep down, they know they're fooling themselves. Because once you awaken, the truth can no longer be hidden, and this truth is that you no longer belong to what once made you feel safe. If before your identity was tied to your job, now it seems mechanical. If before certain friendships were an essential part of your life, now the conversations seem forced. If before you felt like you had a place in the world, now everything seems too small for who you've become. And that's okay. Because this discomfort doesn't mean something is wrong. It means you're ready for something greater.